Yeah, so our next one is actually a speaker panel kind of thing. We did this last time, and I think people enjoyed it, so we're going to keep doing that. Today we're featuring Simon talking about how to leverage your IP. IP is intellectual property, so we're going to talk about rights, royalties, and record labels. So basically, any kind of questions you have about these, he's your guy to help answer them. Simon's a die-hard electronic music fan with over 10 years of multidisciplinary experience in the music industry. He worked with artists and music businesses in diverse roles, including label manager, event producer, audio engineer, artist, musician, AV tech, adjudicator. What have you not done?
I have no idea.
He has a master's degree in pop music and culture from Lee Beckett University. With his research explored the creative processes of electronic music producers. Simon, right now, he works at Monster Cat as a digital rights manager, where he's responsible for ensuring the accurate collection and distribution of royalties, maintaining label release metadata, managing publishing administration, and performing data analyses. So yeah, I guess this is Heather, this is Raph, and I'll let you guys take it away.
All right. So, well, I guess Simon had a pretty good introduction from Leo, but I wanted to introduce myself as well. So my name is Heather, and my street name is Heater. And in my daytime, I work a lot on like the money side of things, how companies make money. So this topic really interests me because I want to understand how musicians make money as well. So hopefully my questions will be targeted enough to help everyone answer that question that you may have for yourself as well.
And I'm Raphael. You guys' name is Raph. My street name is Larion. I'm a music producer, so I make bass music, very cinematic dubstep. And I'm very interested in this talk too because you work with Monster Cat, and you also, I feel like the money side of being an artist is so like, I feel like everyone kind of is like, oh, like I want my streams to get up, and then there's like this reality that people say that it's not all there, and I think there's a lot of confusing information out there. Mm-hmm. So it'd be really cool to like dive in and get some good gems.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't know if you want me to introduce myself further too than that at all, but my street name's Garrison Hill. I also make music, so now everybody knows the street.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, so why don't we get started with what is IP in the music industry's context? Can you kind of explain the basics of intellectual property in the context of electronic music?
Sure. I guess the first thing I'll say is if I'm looking at my phone, it's because I made a bunch of notes because this stuff is really complicated. Copyright law differs in every country, in different territories, in different economic zones like Europe or APAC or Southeast Asia and Australia, New Zealand, etc. And I will also preface by saying I'm not a lawyer. And nothing that I say is legal advice. And also, I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing I say is financial advice. If you are getting into this and you get a record contract, consult a lawyer, or if you're unsure of anything, talk to somebody who's an expert in this, because nothing is the same between one deal or the other, or in one place or the other at all. So to the question, I guess fundamentally, there's two copyrights that are inherent in a piece of music. There's a copyright on the sound recording or the master, and it goes by different names. And there's a copyright on the composition or the song, or that's also sometimes called the publishing. And the reason this is because the underlying song can be reproduced on a piece of paper in theory, right? Even if it's electronic music, you could write out all the notes and write out all the words and distribute it that way. But the actual kind of sound file you get at the end of the day that embodies that composition is also a different piece of material that's individually produced that has the timbre and the sound and those other unique qualities. And the reason this is this way goes back kind of a very long way in history, and like traditional copyright and or like copyright and royalties as a way to earn money from music has been around for a very long time, but it only has really been since the late 1800s, early 1900s that we've had this kind of more dual system. this came about because of actually player pianos in the United States, where songwriters were concerned about being compensated for the player pianos that were the roles of the music that they had written were going into. And so that's where this thing called mechanical royalties ended up coming from. During the early 1900s then, radio and broadcast became a much more commonplace thing, and songwriters got upset again, and their publishers got upset again. And so this thing called performance rights and performance royalties came about. And then ever since then, over time, particularly in the US, North America, and Europe, and both kind of places have come up with good ideas and ways of doing things in their copyright laws before each other, and then adopted each other's things. Things have developed since then until we are now at this point in time where when you make a song, you have a master, you have a composition. On the master side, you earn royalties. So like, let's say you distribute through DistroKid and you get your master royalties through them. Then there's the publishing side, and on the publishing side, you have performance and mechanicals that comes from streaming platforms, or when you download a song on iTunes, there's a different type of mechanical. I'm probably also missing a whole lot of things. Oh, neighboring rights. That's another thing. Neighboring rights is the same thing as performance rights, but on the master side. And then you can also own your synchronization rights, which is the rights that you can give or assign to somebody to put your song into another medium, so it'd be that film or television or video games. Yeah, and then all of those things are revenue streams for your money whenever your song is used, played, performed, streamed, downloaded, bought, sold, etc.
Do we need to like? So that's really insightful, because I thought copyright was just a protection thing, but you're saying it's these are ways that you can earn money from. Like these are all
the Canadian Copyright Act literally defines how for any type of usage of a song on the composition side, so the publishing or composition side. I might use a lot of different words for the same thing, but because I don't know why, just depending on what I'm talking about in my head, I flip. But yeah, on the composition side in the Copyright Act, whether it's like broadcast television, an on-demand stream, which is like where you literally go and choose the artist and play, or an interactive stream, or a non-interactive stream, or whatever. Like so, like Spotify, like your day list might be a non-interactive stream. The Copyright Act defines formulas that SOCAN, our performing rights organization in Canada, or there's a couple, but SOCAN's kind of the larger one, uses to bill Spotify for that play. Like the rates and formulas and distribution policies are defined in the copyright law, along with all of the different right types that have those different royalty streams.
Okay, so if we're releasing a song, like what should we do? Like, I know obviously we upload to, let's say, a distributor like DistroKid or whatever. Is there anything else that we should be doing? Like you said, SOCAN. Do we need to register the song?
Oh,
SOCAN
yeah.
too,
So there's lots of things. I guess I'll preface this too. On the when you are in your DAW and you finish your song and you bounce it and export it, you own the copyright in the master and the publishing on that piece of work. If you distribute it through DistroKid, technically what you're doing is licensing it to DistroKid for exclusively to collect the royalties on your behalf. So that is the same thing as if you were to license it to a label or on the other side. But with DistroKid, let's say you are only collecting the master side. So yes, in Canada, you should go register with SOCAN. SOCAN is our performing rights organization. They collect performance royalties from streaming, from radio, from television and broadcast, and from concert venues and bars and restaurants who pay the tariff on, and not tariffs in a bad way. I know that's a sore topic today, but that in Canadian copyright law, tariffs is how the rates are defined as a legal term. but bars pay tariffs to SOCAN for their rights to play music to people publicly. Anyway, so yes, you should register with SOCAN. SOCAN does performing rights. SOCAN acquired SODRAC in 2018, so now they also do mechanicals. Mechanicals are different from performing, but those are both royalties on the composition side. You could also go to the CMRRA, the Canadian Music Reproduction Rights Agency, for that. And I think there's another one in Quebec that I can't remember it. Even if you're not Quebec, you can register. And then yes, also for them for neighboring rights, you should go to Connect Music or Soap Rock, or there's a few other there. But yeah, there's a couple places you should register with. This is also wordy and complicated, but yeah.
Right. So yeah, sounds like there's definitely a lot of things going on there with rights when new artists are wanting to release something new. So I know that there's like two routes, whether it be kind of releasing by yourself, just like kind of uploading to DistroKid, and the other option would be signing with a label. So curious to know, when an artist signs with a label, what do royalties splits usually look like? This could be general industry or it could be Monstercat specifically. And how do artists get paid by their...
Yeah, so the deals that labels offer are very different now than they were in the past, and they also constantly change over time. Historically, and I'm sure as a lot of people have heard, the major labels screwed people in the early days. They took the copyright away entirely, or like effectively the copyright got assigned away from the artists. The artists would get really shitty splits, something like 80-20, 90-10, depending, or different splits for different right types that were not favorable. That has changed a lot over time as kind of the democratization of music technologies has kind of become commonplace, and technology has advanced and access to information has changed. Today, deals are much more commonly non-exclusive, or sorry, deals are very commonly exclusive publishing and licensing agreements where you, for a fixed term, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, could also be in perpetuity, assign but usually a shorter fixed term called 20 years, assign that copyright in the master and the composition to the label, usually for a 50-50 split. And then depending on your circumstances, it can be a whole other mix of things. Maybe you're a prolific songwriter and you're signed to a publisher, so you're publishing rights for whatever music you create goes through them, and that could be a different deal. Publishing deals can often be 85-15 or more admin focused than a label deal, because they kind of sit around and do nothing but collect the money on your behalf. So they're really just taking a commission. Some publishers are creative publishers, though, and are more actively involved. But yeah, 50-50 deals that are exclusive licensing and publishing arrangements where the label might also be the publisher, takes it at a 50-50 rate on all right types is kind of the most common practice now. But all of those things change depending on the arrangements. 70-30 can also be common. It really depends. But I guess the important point is that exclusive licensing and publishing deals for a fixed term where you get back your rights after, say, 20 years is much more commonplace now than a label. If anybody comes to any of you in this room, a small label or collective, and their contract says that it's in perpetuity or they take your copyright away, run away. And never talk to those people ever again. And tell everybody never to talk to them again, though nobody does those deals anymore. So that's, I guess, the important point.
That's good to know. Yeah, I guess if someone in the room were to talk with a label or, approach a label, and they're in talks about like signing, what are some like green flags and red flags you would say for the artists to like pay attention to?
What the label's looking for?
No, like as in contracts, right? Like,
oh my
what's a
God!
good thing,
Again,
what's
I'm
a
not
bad
a
thing?
lawyer, and if you get a contract, consult a lawyer, and do not put a contract into AI and ask it to analyze it for you. I've done it. I consult and help other friends and artists, and they send me agreements, and I was curious because I understood what the terms of the contract were, and I threw this one. It was a a weird term for commission on touring revenue for a management deal thing, and AI got it all wrong. So don't do that. And again, I'm not a lawyer. Red flags, giving up your ability to do things, and like those could be like, like let's say like. Exclusivity windows are very common with labels, but if the window's too long for what your release cadence is, so like the label contractually makes it so that you can't release a song within a certain period pre or post your release. If that's like a year's time and you're locked in, unless that's the deal you want, maybe I guess there's nothing I can really say that's a red or a green flag, because it all depends on your circumstance.
That's true.
What you're giving up in exchange for one thing or the other, and what is to the benefit of the label or to you, depends on kind of what you're looking for. And I know there's another question later kind of on this topic, but I'll just say it now also at this point, is don't sign with a label unless you need to. The label's a service, right? They take a percentage of your royalties in exchange for doing some sort of work for you. And I work at a label, and I'm not saying this on behalf of where I work, because maybe if you make great music, you should sign with us, because we could build a cool project together. But I guess that's the point, like if you're going to give away some of your money, or a percentage of the potential money you could earn, you need to make sure that they are going to be doing things for you, whether that's sync placements in TV, film, ads, video games, that they're going to be collecting revenue on your behalf better. Like, let's say you're a small artist and you don't have a publisher right now, and that label will publish you. They're going to do that better than you could with the team you have. Maybe the label has a huge marketing department, and you have like one guy, or it's just you or whatever else, or your cousin does your ads or something. The label's got a team of 20 people. Those are the reasons you should sign with a label. And whatever you want to give up in terms of a deal, or not give up in terms of a deal, should be a negotiation between you and that label to get what you want out of it, and they get what they want out of it. And everybody makes more money. That should be the goal in it all.
Okay. So I guess like while we're on that topic, like I guess we'll just build upon what you just said, and then I want to backtrack later. But so you said labels can offer sync services, they can offer marketing services. Is there any other things that labels can give, like an independent artist? Is connections a thing?
Partnerships with brands, or activations in certain markets, or with certain businesses.
What does activations mean in certain markets? What's that?
I can say, like, for example, Monster Cat, we do a lot of work in gaming. We provide the soundtrack for Rocket League, and a number of other games. And so, we work with artists who release songs with us so that they can get in Rocket League. Or like the label might have an events team. I know, like, speaking of Monster Cat, we have an events team. We do stage takeovers at festivals. We put our artists up on those stages, or artists we're working with or affiliated with, and stuff like that. Merch is another thing that a label can do for you. There's all sorts of stuff like that, I guess.
That's cool. And I guess going from the other end of it, is what are things that independent artists, okay, how should I word this? Like, if we want to get the attention of a label, what are things that us artists should be doing, or like what points should we be getting to? Is there like a monthly
This is what I wrote. This is
or?
what I wrote the most down about earlier. So I'm going to reference what I wrote down, because there's a lot of things, but these are just my ideas. So what the question is, like, for artists to get noticed by a label, existing strong streaming performance, and from the label side, they might have a success targets for their releases, and you might not even be considered if you fall on average in terms of your release performance under those success targets.
Can you give us a number?
No. Because it depends, and it depends on the label, and and it depends on the time of year, and it depends on the genre. It could lots of there's not necessarily one number, you know. And like I was also, I guess, just saying, a label or even if it's not a label, just a sync agency. There's just people who just do sync, or a publisher or something like that might sign a song because it's going to get put in a Nike ad, and they don't care that it's going to stream because Nike's going to pay them $500,000. So like streaming performance also might not matter, or those targets might not matter depending on who you're talking to or for what reason, even if the song is going to end up on streaming. Anyways, artists' previous placements in target playlists, so editorial on Spotify, that's another thing like labels can do. And those and in playlists that are relevant to the label, and then that the label has confidence in that artist being able to be placed in the future, or the artist has confidence in their ability to be placed in playlists in the future on Spotify or any other platform. Strong engagement and views on social platforms and conversion to streaming, and strong engagement on DSP through stuff like saves on Spotify is an important metric. How much the artist is willing to participate in the promotion. You know, if all you do is make the music and you throw it at the label and say, here you go, it's like, why would that label care? You should be motivated and engaged, and you want to make reels and want to make TikToks and want to make social content and have a vision and have a brand and understand what you want it to look like and how you want it to function, and be able to work with the label team who has the connections to the graphics people maybe, or marketing departments and other freelancers and stuff to do it. That you are displaying momentum and growth. So numbers are going up. If you're trending up over time, people are going to want to work with you, and you should go want to work with a label, because that's a good point where you can access financing and capital through advances, or the label, paying or expensing, which are obviously recoupable, but for you. Your genre affinity is in line with your own project and the label's genre, which is a tricky one. I guess in a different way to say it, it's like you should be, if you make tech house today and dubstep tomorrow, no, a label's probably not going to look at you. Like you could change over time, but you can change over time, but as long as you're within a window of time where you are like, this is your thing that you're doing. But if it's like one thing today and a new thing tomorrow and then a new thing the next day, it's like, what's the cohesion? Like, there's no project there or whatever. But there's also silly stuff, like songs being too long or too short.
Really?
Yeah. Long songs don't stream well. Short songs have problems. Over 4 minutes. Radio, that's the whole Queen Bohemian Rhapsody thing. Is like, yeah, radio wouldn't play. No, now they do, but the streaming algorithms don't like long songs.
The other day I saw like an 8-minute long Deep House song that actually Kurotech had sent. It was pretty good. I didn't finish it though.
Well, that's the thing. And then there's a drop off in engagement, and then I think lots of stuff about purpose and intent. Oh, performing well in higher-end markets. So the CPM or RPM, depending on how you want to, or the dollar amount per thousand plays or streams, is different in different countries. So like, it's really shit in like Vietnam, but it's like really good in the US. Right, or the U.S. blended RPM might be $4, or CPM might be $4, and it might be like 85 cents in Malaysia. So like, if you get 1 million streams, but those streams come from a low earning market, then a label might not want to look at you. Yeah. And there's many other things I've written, but we could talk for forever.
Keep going. We won't want to know.
I want to know.
That you have a good team.
Okay.
You gotta have a good team, good managers. Shitty managers that are difficult to work with suck. And shitty lawyers that are difficult to work with suck, etc. And you as an artist should also, it's hard to break things off with people, but you also need to be on top of your shit. You're running a business, have people around you, you're paying them or they're getting a commission. Have those people be good people. Um, and have those people be people that are fighting for you and being fair and good. And then I guess I'll leave on the last thing is how much complexity there is. Are you asking too much, or do you want too much? Are there 100 writers on the song? Like that could be confusing. Do you have too many amendments to contracts and things like that? Like, are you just being difficult for no good reason? Do you want to actually do the deal? Why are you talking to a label? Like, is it just overly complicated for no good reason, or you're making it overly complicated? Again, that also can go back to team. Lawyers just arguing points they don't need to argue and not talking to the manager and then not talking to the artist about the deals that they're doing. And then just like have purpose and intent always, and submit demos and don't stop.
Okay.
That's always a really good place to start. Have the good intent, and so sounds like there's a lot of things that an artist should work towards before kind of looking at signing with a label.
Absolutely. I would never recommend that anybody sign with a label if you have no need to.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess before the artists ramp up to that stage, when they're growing their brand, when they're getting these streams, getting there, like what happens if someone like tries to kind of like take inspiration from their work or like kind of like copy their composition? How can an artist who's independent sort of safeguard their work now that everyone's posting all their ideas on the internet?
Well, copyright's inherent and is automatic whenever you make something. But so there's nothing you need to do there. I suppose technically, legally, there you could actually go register a copyright, because copyrights exist not just on music, they exist on art and other things like that. And people still do register formally copyrights with the Copyright Office in Canada, but it's not necessary. So you could do those things, I guess, if you wanted to. Same with like if you wanted to trademark a brand or a logo or something like that. There's no harm. Those are just expensive processes that require lawyers and things that you might probably not need to do depending on what you're doing. Otherwise, like I mentioned before, go become a member of SOCAN, either for just performing performance royalties or performance and mechanical. If you want to split things up to be fun, you could also do your mechanicals with CMRRA. Go become an artist performer member with Connect Music or Soap Rock for your neighboring rights. Register your works with them whenever you make a song. I don't think I mentioned performance royalties and neighboring rights. Both of those performance rights and neighboring rights both have to do with the public broadcast or public performance of work. One's on the master side, one of the performance is on the composition side, neighboring's on the master side. In Canada, there's actually no neighboring rights in the US, but that's also another long story. But in Canada, the way the money gets distributed by law is 50% to the writers or songwriters and 50% to the labels or publishers. So if you are 100% of that, like you have self-released, then 100% goes to you. But if you don't register your works, or the label you're working with doesn't register your works and they publish you, or represent you for your publishing, you're going to miss out on that 50% of the money. The label is going to get their 50%. It has to go somewhere, right? So like go register with SOCAN and go register with Soap Rock or Connect for your neighboring rights, because the money goes there and it exists, and it, depending on what territory it comes from reciprocal agreements they have or other things, it can disappear. They don't hold the money forever. They pool it and they distribute it to people. So like if you're not registered and you have songs that are being streamed, you're not making that money, and that money's would have been allocated to you if you were registered. So I think those are the main things for protecting yourself.
In terms of like what we should do as artists now, I guess it does depend on everybody's individual goals, but do you, as someone who's on the inside, would you recommend indie artists like us to kind of operate like a label? Or like, I guess for people like us who are kind of trying to make it, like, and as someone who works for a record label, would it benefit us to kind of implement systems like a record label, but operate it at an indie level?
Yes, yes, and no. I'll be a little dismissive in saying that a record label is a bank with a marketing team, basically, and a lot of a bank with a marketing team and a large network. Maybe a better way to put it. Uh, um, if you don't have any money or a marketing team, then obviously you can't operate like a label. We have access to so many tools and technologies and things, somewhat to an overwhelming sense, and a lot of the music industry tries to suck you in to get a little piece of the pie. I would say like nobody can operate like a label because they don't necessarily have the capital or ability to, but should always strive to build yourself into a business that is functioning like a label. You know, like if you're developing your career, you should strive to build a team around you of people that would be the same sorts of people that there would be at a label, so that at some point in time, hopefully, you don't need the labels anymore. You can do it on your own.
In terms of then getting capital, I guess like what are the ways that labels generate the revenue? Particularly methods that we could also implement ourselves in our own music business.
The way the same, like the way are you asking the way? What is the way the labels make their money? The same way you would if you were independently. So like streaming revenue from master deals with all of the streaming platforms, YouTube, revenue from ad-supported sites, synchronization into film, TV ads, video games, etc. Brand partnerships and integrations, and then the label, if the label is also a publisher. Some labels aren't, but a lot are both record labels on the master side and publishing or publishers on the publishing side, are going to be registering your works and doing your publishing administration and collecting your performance and mechanical royalties for a cut of it to pay it out to you. So the labels make the money in the same way. They're just an intermediary in doing the work for you to collect and pay you that money.
Like even when we're talking about like, you know, people have mentioned merch and live shows here as well. So it would be the same thing like that. Like the label is just kind of a.
The label might have something to do with live shows, but also not. I guess that's one. Merch and live shows can be your own domain. There's a thing called a 360 deal. This is where the label takes a cut of everything up completely, always, all of it, 100% of everything you do.
What about things like brand partnerships? For example, like Raphael lands a deal with Coca-Cola. Like, does that have anything to do with the label or?
The label could orchestrate a deal like that happening, and if the label has signed the song that becomes an integration, they might make, you know, a fee off of you, but then you might get the, you know, 95% of the 500 grand for like appearing in the Coke ad. Like let's say you like appear in a you said Coca-Cola, right? You appear in a Coca-Cola ad and they use your song. The label would like do the sync deal for that song to be in it, and maybe if they orchestrated it happening, they would get a, you know, 5% of your appearance fee. But that could be, those are always deals like that are usually one-off, right? And are not pre-contracted and would happen as part of signing a deal or something like that. But then, like I was saying, there's things like sync agents where you sign those rights away, or you could also sign your likeness as a human being away, or sell your likeness to somebody who represents it and goes and like puts it on things. Like any like major sports player, like half of them don't own the rights. I don't know half. I'm making up numbers, but like a lot of them sell the rights at a certain point in time to cash out. It's like a musician selling their catalog. You know, like a quarterback sells their likeness. I don't know. But yeah, there's agencies and people who will represent those sorts of things specifically. That's generally not the business of labels, but it can be.
Okay, so I guess there are other revenue streams that an artist can take outside of streaming, but those are a separate deal.
From labels and stuff like that. Yeah, labels get involved in those things. The answer to everything I've also been saying is like, it depends.
Fair.
But yeah, usually artists own their touring and own their merch, or they sign it away to a touring support company or a merch company.
Yeah. Thanks so much for the chat. That's all the questions that Raf and I had for you, and it was super, super insightful for us. And so we're happy to open up the floor right now to anyone who has any questions for Simon. Yeah, feel free to.
Mike?
So if you sign with a publisher and you say sign a certain catalog of your songs, just the publishing side of things, and the master side of things is still with a distributor like Create or DistroKid or whatever, and it ends up being synchronized to something that ends up on YouTube, then your distributor copyright strikes it, even though your publisher licensed it to that. Like, who has domain in modern platforms like YouTube and TikTok and stuff like that?
Both. YouTube specifically, but the publishers generally have more control on YouTube because technically the master recording has the composition embodied in it in a legal sense. A sync deal should be done where both the master and the publishing side are cleared. So if that appeared on YouTube, you would go, and then something got claimed or there was a strike, you should, and it was actually cleared on both sides with two different parties, a different label and a different publisher, you should go talk to whoever striked it and tell them to stop and show them the paper they signed that says they cleared it. And a lot of what ends up happening is like a label or a publisher will do a deal but forget to like allow list that piece of that content or whatever, and then it ends up getting claimed when it shouldn't, or the deal doesn't carve out that particular usage, which it might not. Yeah, that's another thing too. You can, I know I can speak for Monster Cat. The songs we put in Rocket League, you can use content ID free on YouTube. So if you post game clips, we don't strike or take your monetization away. But that's because those are carved out in those particular deals. So and those are sync deals to put the music in the video games, where like something like that's carved out. Maybe it's not carved out in your deal, and or in this hypothetical, you go talk to your people. Is what I would do. Yeah.
I had a lot of questions, but just one to clarify like the route you would take, per se, in terms of making sure that you are going to get some kind of revenue from posting a song versus having the agency or your decide to go and post it. So, from my understanding, you said applying to the copyright agencies, SOCAN and all them. Are you doing that as a license, or are you doing that for each individual song or that you post, just as independent?
Yeah, so SOCAN's a not-for-profit organization that's mandated by the Copyright Board of Canada to exist, to collect performance royalties on behalf of its Canadian members. You are technically assigning them administration rights. You're not licensing to them. They're a collecting agency. They don't do any. Now, technically, SOCAN has people that work at it that try to foster artist development, and you can sign other things to SOCAN. But but that's, I guess, besides the point. At its basis, you register as a member, As a member, you are assigned an IPI number, which is mandated through CSAC, which is the French-based governing body of all performing rights organizations in the world, who mandate a standard for the registration of works between every single territory and country. So if you're a member of SOCAN, you're tapped into a network of collecting agencies with reciprocal agreements in every country in the world that are members of the CSAC, the governing body, that will collect those performance royalties on your behalf in every given territory based on that territory's copyright law. But it's not a licensing deal, it's a collection administration assignment, technically, I guess. Yeah.
When it comes to PROs collecting unregistered like unregistered royalties at first. So say if someone puts out a song but it's not registered with the PRO until, like, let's say, I don't know, 2 years later. So how long do they hold on to, like, those black box royalties? Depends. Like, depends on the PRO or on the
Depends on the PRO. Yeah, in the U.S. now, there is the Music Modernization Act in whatever, there's like 6 years ago, that made the mechanical licensing collective, and they hold on the money for like 2 years or something like that. Like some countries hold on to it forever. I think I don't remember what it is in Canada in terms of time. But it's a couple of years. And performing rights is different also than the mechanical side. So, but the answer is largely it depends. But the sooner the better to go register. And the way that sometimes they also allocate those things is not based on. It's not like for streaming mechanicals. Let's say it's not Spotify determining how much they pay, and it's not SOCAN reproduction rights division telling Spotify how much they owe them. That's defined in the law. Whereas like performance can be, they're tracking usage in a country like broadcast use, like BMI or ASCAP or CSAC in the US use like is it Mediabase, I think, and like Nielsen. If anybody's heard, Nielsen does polls. They like track TV. And then the TV stations send cue sheets to BMI, ASCAP, and CSAC in the US with the usage of songs in the TV shows. Like it depends on the usage, it depends on the right type, it depends on the territory, and it depends on the law in that territory. But usually a couple of years things are held. But yeah, sooner than later, register your shit. Yeah. And if you do live performances, submit your set lists.
So in terms of copyright, when we're trying to release like an album or a single, and we're posting everything to those distributing platforms, should we be concerned about the covers or images or like visuals that we're using with those tracks or those albums? Like, does the copyright apply to those as well?
There is a copyright in those images, and you should own it or have it licensed to you by the person who created it. Yes. And also, all of the streaming platforms and digital stores and stuff like that have policies and rules for what is allowed and not allowed in terms of what's the actual content of the art, in terms of like how much text appears in it and formatting and sizing and like nudity or pornographic content. Like there's all sorts of rules about like what you are and aren't allowed to do with that too. So yeah, you should own your art and follow the rules of the platforms you're distributing to. What'll end up happening is if there's an issue, the distributor will get a notice from the platform or somewhere within the chain and notify you that the artwork is invalid or breaks some sort of policy or rule.
Because we see those, like I see those visuals on Spotify, for example, right? Moving.
Oh, the canvases, yeah.
So like, I just want to know if copyright applies to those as well, or
Yeah. Like if you are the creator of the video, right? You filmed it on your phone or like made it in Blender on your computer or something, then you own the copyright in those visuals. Yes. Yeah.